After the death of Joshua, the children of Israel asked Yahweh, saying, "Who should go up for us to fight against the Canaanites, to fight against them?" Yahweh said, "Judah shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land into his hand." Judah said to Simeon his brother, "Come up with me into my lot, that we may fight against the Canaanites, and I likewise will go with you into your lot." So Simeon went with him. Judah went up, and Yahweh delivered the Canaanites and the Perizzites into their hand. They struck 10,000 men in Bezek. They found in Adonai Bezek, and they fought against him. They struck the Canaanites and the Perizzites, but Adonai Bezek fled. They pursued him, caught him, and cut off his thumbs and his big toes. Adonai Bezek said, 70 kings, having their thumbs and their big toes cut off, scavenged under my table. As I have done, so God has done to me. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The children of Judah fought against Jerusalem, took it, and struck it with the edge of the sword, and set the city on fire. After that, the children of Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites, who lived in the hill country, and in the south, and in the lowlands. Judah went against the Canaanites, who lived in Hebron. The name of Hebron before that was Kiriath Arba. They struck Sheshai, Aminam, and Telmeh. From there, he went against the inhabitants of Debir. The name of Debir before that was Kiriath Sepher. Caleb said, "I will give Ashkas, my daughter, as wife to the man who strikes Kiriath Sepher and takes it." Othniel, the son of Kenez, Caleb's younger brother, took it, so he gave him Eshkah, his wife. When she came, she got to him to ask her father for a field. She got off her donkey, and Caleb said to her, "What would you like?" She said to him, "Give me a blessing, because you have set me in the land of the south. Give me also springs of water." Then Caleb gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. The children of the Kenite, Moses' brother-in-law, went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which is in the south of Arad. And they went and lived with the people. Judah went with Simeon his brother, and they struck the Canaanites who inhabited Zephath and utterly destroyed it. The name of the city was called Hormah. Also Judah took Gaza with its border, and Ashkelon with its border, and Ekron with its border. Yahweh was with Judah, and drove out the inhabitants of the hill country, for he could not drive out the inhabitants of the valley, because they had chariots of iron. They gave Hebron to Caleb, as Moses said, and he drove the 3 sons of Anak out of there. The children of Benjamin didn't drive out the Jebusites who inhabited Jerusalem, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Benjamin in Jerusalem to this day. The house of Joseph also went up against Bethel, and Yahweh was with them. The house of Joseph sent to spy out Bethel. The name of that city before was Luz. The watchers saw a man come out of the city, and they said to him, "Please, show us the entrance into the city, and we will deal kindly with you." He showed them the entrance into the city, and they struck the city with the edge of the sword. But they let the man and his family go. The man went into the land of the Hittites, built a city, and called its name Luz, which is its name to this day. Manasseh didn't drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shean and its towns, nor Tanakh and its towns, nor the inhabitants of Dor and its towns, nor the inhabitants of Ibleam and its towns, nor the inhabitants of Megiddo and its towns. But the Canaanites would dwell in that land. When Israel had grown strong, they put the Canaanites to forced labor and didn't utterly drive them out. Ephraim didn't drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gaza, but the Canaanites lived in Gaza among them. Zebulun didn't drive out the inhabitants of Kitron, nor the inhabitants of Nahalol, but the Canaanites lived among them and became subject of forced labor. Asher didn't drive out the inhabitants of Akko, nor the inhabitants of Sidon, nor of Alab, nor of Aksib, nor of Helba, nor of Aphik, nor of Rehob. But the Asherites lived among the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, for they didn't drive them out. Naphtali didn't drive out the inhabitants of Beth Shemosh, nor the inhabitants of Beth Anath, but he lived among the Canaanites and the inhabitants of the land. Nevertheless, the inhabitants of Beth Shemosh and of Beth Anath became subject to forced labor. The Amorites forced the children of Dan into the hill country, for they would not allow them to come down into the valley. But the Amorites would dwell in Mount Heres, in Ajalon, and in Shaalbim. Yet the hand of the house of Joseph prevailed, so that they became subject to forced labor. The border of the Amorites was from the ascent of Akrib to the rock and upward. Yahweh's angel came up from Gilgal to Bochim. He said, I brought you out of Egypt, and have made you to the land which I swore to give your fathers. I said, I will never break my covenant with you. You shall make no covenant with the inhabitants of this land. You shall break down their altar. But you have not listened to my voice. Why have you done this? Therefore, I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be in your sides, and their gods will be a snare to you. When Yahweh's angel spoke these words to all the children of Israel, the people lifted up their voice and wept. They called the name of that place Bochim, and they sacrificed there to Yahweh. Now when Joshua had sent the people away, the children of Israel each went to his inheritance to possess the land. The people served Yahweh all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders who outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great work of Yahweh that he had worked for Israel. Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of Yahweh, died, being 110 years old. They buried him in the border of his inheritance, to Timnath-Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, on the north of the mountain of Gash. After all that generation were gathered to their fathers, another generation arose after them, who didn't know Yahweh, nor the work which he had done for Israel. The children of Israel did that which is evil in Yahweh's sight, and served the Baals. They abandoned Yahweh, the God of their fathers, who brought them out of the land of Egypt, and followed other gods, of the gods of the people who were around them, and bowed themselves down to them, and they provoked Yahweh's anger. They abandoned Yahweh and served Baal and the Ashtaroth. Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he delivered them into the hands of raiders who plundered them. He sold them into the hands of their enemies all around, so that they could no longer stand before their enemies. Wherever they went out, Yahweh's hand was against them, for evil, as Yahweh had spoken, and as Yahweh had sworn to them, and they were very distressed. Yahweh raised up judges who saved them out of the hand of those who plundered him. Yet they didn't listen to their judges, for they prostituted themselves to other gods and bowed themselves down to them. They quickly turned away from the way in which their fathers walked, obeying Yahweh's commandments. They didn't do so. When Yahweh raised up judges for them, then Yahweh was with the judge and saved them out of the hand of their enemies all the days of the judge, for it grieved Yahweh because of their groaning and by reason of those who oppressed them and troubled them. But when the judge was dead, they turned back and dealt more corruptly than their fathers in following other gods to serve them and to bow down to them. They didn't cease in what they were doing or give up their stubborn ways. Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he said, "Because this nation transgressed my covenant which I commanded their fathers, and has not listened to my voice, I also will no longer drive out any of the nations that Joshua left when he died from before them, that by them I may test Israel to see if they will keep Yahweh's way to walk therein, as their fathers kept it, or not. So Yahweh left those nations without driving them hastily. He didn't deliver them into Joshua's hand. Now these are the nations which Yahweh left to test Israel by them, even as many as had not known all the wars of Canaan, only that the generation of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, at least those who knew nothing of it before. The 5 lords of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, the Hivites who live on Mount Lebanon, from Mount Baal Hermon to the entrance of Hamath. They were left to test Israel by them, to know whether they would listen to Yahweh's commandments, which he commanded their fathers by Moses. The children of Israel lived among the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. They took their daughters to be their wives, and gave their own daughters to their sons, and served their gods. The children of Israel did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, and forgot Yahweh their God, and served the Baals and the Ashtaroth. Therefore Yahweh's anger burned against Israel, and he sold them into the hand of Cushan-Rishameth, king of Mesopotamia. And the children of Israel served Cushan-Rishameth 8 years. When the children of Israel cried to Yahweh, Yahweh raised up a saviour to the children of Israel, who saved them, even Othniel the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. Yahweh's spirit came on him, and he judged Israel, and he went out to war, and Yahweh delivered Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand. His hand prevailed against Cushan-Rishathaim. The land had rest 40 years. Then Othniel, the son of Kenaz, died. The children of Israel again did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight. And Yahweh strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done that which was evil in Yahweh's sight. He gathered the children of Ammon and Amalek to himself, and he went and struck Israel, and possessed the city of palm trees. The children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. But when the children of Israel cried to Yahweh, Yahweh raised up a saviour for them, Ehud, the son of Gera, the Benjamite, a left-handed man. The children of Israel sent tribute to him, to Eglon, the king of Moab. Ehud made himself a sword, which had 2 edges, a cubit in length. And he wore it under his tribute tab. Now Eglon was a very fat man. When Ehud had finished offering tribute, he sent away the people who carried the tribute. But he himself turned back from the stone idols that were kept by Gilgal, and said, "I have a secret message for you, O king." The king said, "Keep silence." All who stood by him left. Ehud came to him, and he was sitting by himself alone in the cool upper room. Ehud said, "I have a message from God to you." He arose out of his seat. Ehud put out his left hand, and took the sword from his right thigh, and thrust it into his body. The handle also went in after the blade, and the fat closed on the blade, for he didn't draw the sword out of his body, and it came out behind. Then Ehud went out to the porch, and shut the doors of the upper room on him, and locked them. After he had gone, the servants came and saw that the doors of the upper room were locked. They said, "Surely he is covering his feet in the upper room." They waited until they were ashamed, and behold, he didn't open the doors of the upper room. Therefore they took the key and opened them, and behold, their lord had fallen down dead on the floor. Ehud escaped while they waited, passed beyond the stone idols, and escaped to Seirah. When he had come, he blew a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the children of Israel went down with him from the hill country, and he led them. He said to them, "Follow me, for Yahweh has delivered your enemies, the Moabites, into your hand." They followed him and took the fords of the Jordan against the Moabites, and didn't let any man pass over. They struck at that time about 10,000 men of Moab, every strong man and every man of valour. No man escaped. So Moab was subdued that day under the hand of Israel. Then the land had rest 80 years. After him was Shamgar, the son of Anath, who struck 600 men of the Philistines with an ox goad. He also saved Israel. The children of Israel again did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight. When Ehud was dead, Yahweh sold them into the hand of King Jabin of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose army was Sisera, who lived in Hasheroth of the Gentiles. The children of Israel cried to Yahweh, for he had 900 chariots of iron, and he mightily oppressed the children of Israel for 20 years. Now Deborah, a prophetess of the wife of Lapidoth, judged Israel at that time. She lived under Deborah's palm tree between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the children of Israel came up to her for judgment. She sent and called Barak the son of Abinoam out of Kadesh, Naphtali, and said to him, "Hasn't Yahweh the God of Israel commanded, 'Go and lead the way to Mount Tabor, and take with you 10,000 men of the children of Naphtali and the children of Zebulun? I will draw you to the river Kishon, Sisera, the captain of Jabin's army, with his chariot and his multitude, and I will deliver him into your hand." Barak said to her, "If you will go with me, then I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go." She said, "I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, the journey that you take won't be for your honor, for Yahweh will sell Sisera into a woman's hand." Deborah arose and went with Barak to Kadesh. Barak called Zebulun and Naphtali together to Kadesh. 10,000 men followed him, and Deborah went up with him. Now Heber the Kenite had separated himself from the Kenites, even from the children of Hobab, Moses' brother-in-law, and had pitched his tent as far as the oak in Zananim, which is by Kadesh. They told Sisera that Barak the son of Abinoam was gone up to Mount Tabor. Sisera gathered together all his chariots, even 900 chariots of iron, and all the people who were with him, from Hashereth of the Gentiles to the river Kishon. Deborah said to Barak, "Go, for this is the day in which Yahweh has delivered Sisera into your hand. Hasn't Yahweh gone out before you?" So Barak went down from Mount Tabor, and 10,000 men after him. Yahweh confused Sisera, all his chariots and all his army, with the edge of the sword before Barak. Sisera abandoned his chariot and fled away on his feet. But Barak pursued the chariots and the army to Harosheth of the Gentiles, and all the army of Sisera fell by the edge of the sword. There was not a man left. However, Sisera fled away on his feet to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite, for there was peace between Jabin, the king of Hazor, and the house of Heber the Kenite. Jael went out to meet Sisera, and said to him, "Turn in, my lord, turn in to me. Don't be afraid." He came in to her in the tent, and she covered him with a rug. He said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." She opened a container of milk, and gave him a drink, and covered him. He said to her, "Stand in the door of the tent, and if any man comes and inquires of you, and says, 'Is there any man here?' you shall say, 'No.'" Then Jael, Heber's wife, took a tent peg, and took a hammer in her hand, and went softly to him, and struck the pin into his temples, and it pierced through into the ground, for he was in a deep sleep. So he fainted and died. Behold, as Barak pursued Sisera, Jael came out to meet him and said, "Come, I will show you the man whom you seek." He came to her, and behold, Sisera lay dead, and the tent peg was in his temples. So God subdued Jabin, king of Canaan, before the children of Israel on that day. The hand of the children of Israel prevailed more and more against Jabin, the king of Canaan, until they had destroyed Jabin, king of Canaan.